you don't have to have a full Bitcoin. If this was spread out evenly between everybody, it's like 0.002 Bitcoin for every single person on the planet. I'm really bullish for the like Q4, Q1, 26. I think there's just it's gonna be a good time to hold assets. I think everything's probably going to rip. We will see another parabolic move. That frenzy is what causes retail come back in the door. As Bitcoin breaks into new all-time highs, let's say it goes to 150 or 200,000, that's like another alarm bell. When that goes to 1,000, you're like, whoa, hold on. Every single 4-year period in Bitcoin's history is positive. But when Bitcoin moves, it moves in like 10 days. And if you're not holding for those 10 days, you miss out on like percent of the return. And I've taken a long-term view on Bitcoin for a very long time. So I'm here for the long run. If you look at the absolute worst 4-year period for strategies, if you would have been the worst at picking like the start date and the end date 4 years later, it would be a percent compounding annual growth rate.
Obviously, we're seeing craziness in the market right now, just seemingly all over the place. Social unrest. We're seeing, things are just, it feels like the drain, you put the quarter in the penny in the thing, it's just like going, closer to the drain. So it's speeding up before it goes into the black abyss. And it just kind of feels like that's what the economy and society is doing. So what is your take? And I don't know if it's zero hedge or whatever. It's like, hey, Bitcoin should be 250,000 right now, fair market value with M2 and M2. There's so many crazy things going on. So I love the Jeff Walton download, info dump on what exactly is going on right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of macro events, a lot of uncertainty. I think in a lot of places in the market, thinking about politically, thinking about, but politically, from an economic perspective, everything that's happening with the Fed, thinking about interest rates, how all of that filters through, looking at unaffordability, you've got inflation, you've got equities at all-time highs, you've got gold blasting through the roof, you've got everybody trying to figure out like what is the equation of the world. And then you, on top of that, you've got this artificial intelligence expansion and bots and trading algorithms also trying to figure everything out. So that taking advantage of existing infrastructure and existing systems, and you've got these liquid financial instruments that are coming into play with derivatives markets that are ever expanding. And like Bitcoin itself is now a $2.5 trillion asset, and the derivatives market is huge on top of it. So you've got just the development of like all of this technology hitting the market in different ways and different sides of the world, and we're seeing it all kind of shake out in terms of what things are valued at and how the new regime works and interacts together. And I think that's something that is going to play out over the next decade plus. I think we're going to see that penny spinning around for quite a while, and unless there's like some drastic large industry event that results in an acceleration of sort of regime change, it seems. But like to your point, this communication of financial education and things that are important for society to start to grasp, I think is becoming ever more important, and was one of the primary reasons why I started the True North brand, is to provide real clean frontline communication of what's happening in these marketplaces, and walking through some of the challenges we're seeing in the capital markets just in general, and how some of this technology can infiltrate and provide solutions that help the world be a better place. Ever since I was younger, I've been really interested in financial education just in general. I thought it was so weird when I went to college. I was a senior in college, and I took a personal finance class. I was a senior in college, and I learned about like mortgages and credit cards and loans and taxes, and how taxes work. They made us file our own taxes and do all of that stuff. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, oh my God, why don't they teach this in high school? How many people get out of high school and they don't even know like how a credit card works. They don't, and you're just like expected to just get thrown into society and just understand how the world works, which is pretty brutal. And I grew up kind of lower middle class, and I saw a lot of pain, like 07, 08 financial crisis, like in my family, and having to deal with that. And I just made it a point to myself that I never wanted to experience that. I needed to learn everything about this market and like how this stuff works in order to, so I don't fall into that same trap, because like there's got to be a solution here. This seems like a solvable problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been super passionate about that to begin with. And then, stumbling upon Bitcoin, after studying finance and working in the financial world for a decade, has been just an incredibly rewarding experience, because I'm able to like marry this passion of financial education, which I think needs to accelerate very fast, and this complex, nuanced technology that's totally revamping the way capital markets and credit markets work, and watching it all come together. So it's been a super cool journey. I'm excited where I'm at now. I like it. I think it's going to get so much more exciting from here. And with the True North brand fitting underneath the Strive umbrella now, we've got additional resources to help kind of spread that message, and then bring up the education, bring it up another level, but also bring up other educators as well. So the communication and can spread to different avenues. So yeah, really excited about it.
It is so cool. And we need, the joke is always, I think Walker always does it the most, and it's like, we need another Bitcoin podcast. And then, the irony is we do, we need 10,000 more Bitcoin podcasts. We need to overrun the system with truth and what's actually happening in the world. Like you said, just financial education, every angle it needs. And that's what everyone can, whatever someone can provide, whether it's, survival stuff, financial stuff, the sovereignty aspect. I mean, everything. We need so much more, because it's, clearly the world is hurting and needs it, badly.
I think everybody's got like just such a unique perspective too. Like, I think one thing that has resonated with the people that I've talked to is like, I've got an insurance background, so I think about like insurance, and so I bring up a lot of correlation to what's happening in the insurance market. But that's because I worked in insurance and capital markets for 11 years. Like, I don't have a real estate expertise. There's somebody that could pop up and talk about real estate and Bitcoin. Somebody could come up and talk about, credit default swaps and Bitcoin. And like, Bitcoin can touch and improve every little vein of the financial world possible. And that takes just people talking about it and communicating with like-minded people. One thing that was really fascinating to me is just getting behind a microphone and talking about this stuff has resulted in, an overwhelming amount of support, and people that I've been in contact with that have said, "Hey, I'm seeing the same things. Hey, I've talked to other people about these, XYZ. This is what I'm doing in my space." And so it seems like I've almost become like a node or a beacon of connecting other people. And it's like part of my job right now is really just like connecting other people. Like, hey, have you talked to this person? You're doing this over here. Like, go do that. And there's so much to be done. There's so much work to do, and it's just going to take a little while, and just keep talking about it.
The world is changing. Privacy, sovereignty, and freedom are no longer optional. They are essential. If you are still holding your Bitcoin on an exchange, you are vulnerable to your Bitcoin being frozen or the Bitcoin not even being there. In a world of broken trust, a fallen world, we need to be able to know through code, through math, that we have the keys to our wealth. We don't need to trust some third party. We don't need to trust some government. We don't need to trust some ruler on high that they're going to have our wealth and not censor it from us. Just ask European Union how that's going right now. And that's why at Foundation, they're building Bitcoin tools that are open source, privacy first, and actually simple to use. It's the only kind of Bitcoin crypto tools you should be using. The Passport Core is a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet, probably made in the USA. The only one that I know of, fully air-gapped, no Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to compromise your keys, with a large screen, seamless QR workflows, and encrypted micro SD backups. It is here for the average person or the advanced cryptographer as well. Along with your purchase, you get the attachments, the USB-C cord, the iOS and Android attachments, micro SD card, and the USB-C cable. You don't have to go searching around for everything. You also get the free Envoy mobile app as well. You can buy Bitcoin straight into your self-custody. It helps you set up your Passport core, label and track your coins, manage your keys, and do so much more. Foundation built the core and their company for sovereignty and freedom for all of humanity. You can take back control of your money and your digital life now. Get started today at foundation.xyz/Brandon, foundation.xyz/BRANDON, or check the link in the description.
Yeah, so true. That's so cool. I was gonna ask you too, like what is your job more or less with Strive, and just like specifically. So it's so cool, because that is the mission, that is having the real impact. It's like you said, being a connector of like, hey, great, thanks for coming here. Like, you can go talk to this person or go find the knowledge over there, or whatever it is. So you can see people really, certain people you talk to, you can see there really is an impact being made, and people are learning. There is progress, and I think it goes back to the fundamentals of Bitcoin itself continue to grow, hash rate, you look at all the fundamentals, what is wallet users, all these things. And that's where, as you well know, it's, and you can speak on that for a second if you want, just some of these fundamentals, because that's, the trend is your friend, and you're trying as a fundamental value investor, that's what you're looking for, right? I mean, you're looking for like, hey, which way is this going? I know people are like, kind of what's going on with the price. And so if we get so focused on that as humans, it's like, what's happening? It feels like there's like capitulation about to happen in the market everywhere with hardcore Bitcoiners, everything. It's kind of like this weird, like feeling right now, but the fundamentals just keep growing. They've never been stronger. So I think that's like the, hey, let's calm down, let's lower the pressure and noise type of thing we have to have right now.
Yeah. And so you hit on two really good questions there. And I'll talk about my job on the second part, but like thinking about fundamentals, that's where like going to attend these conferences is just so valuable, because it just gets rid of the noise. Mm-hmm. Like there's so much noise on X, and it's hard to tell these days what is real and what's not real. And I've been running a little bit of an experiment of the posts that I've made in the last couple of days. I've been only making it so verified people can respond. And my comments have gone from about 20 or 30 to like 3.
Wow.
and so it's tough to say like exactly what the true sentiment is. And like there are certainly bots out there. Just in the last couple of weeks, I mean, we've gotten like death threats bots. And it's like, we've reported this to authorities, like that's been escalated. It's like real gnarly stuff out there. Like, I can't believe this is even happening. But that's something like we got to deal with and think about. So you think about the incentives of people, like financial markets are really powerful, and you're spinning up 1,000 bots in different, jurisdictions in the Philippines and India and all over these other places. Like the only cost is the energy and like the cell phone to run the bot, and you can run up thousands of them. And whereas like if you have to pay $80 a year, like the cost of being a bot just doesn't make sense. So just something I'm like keeping an eye on. And I mean, to your point, like the fundamentals haven't been stronger. Like you look at a company like Strategy, which I focus on a lot, the company is in a better financial position than they literally have ever been. like ever. And yet people think the sky is falling. And it's like, oh my God, I just, the dissonance is just mind numbing, because they are so financially strong with so little leverage. Like the world is a completely different place than like November of 22, when the sky was actually falling. I'd say the noise was about the same, and Strategy, like they had more debt than they had assets on their balance sheet. Now it's like the story is completely flipped. They've got, 15% leverage. Of that 15% leverage, like 7 or 8% of it never comes due. There's not even a maturity. They could pay out their dividend payments for 100 years. Like, it's just totally mind numbing, witnessing some of the just the really negative sentiment, thinking that the world's over. And to your point, the like having a long-term perspective, like the old OG Bitcoiners have this like hodl mentality. And it feels like almost all of them have left X. And maybe they have, because they're like, price at 100K, like I'm out of here. I don't need to be here anymore. but like that's still the message. Like if you're remotely close to this stuff, like if you look at every single 4-year compound annual growth rate period in Bitcoin's history is positive. And if like you only have one company that has lived through the Bitcoin standard era for more than 4 years, and it's Strategy. If you look at the absolute worst 4-year period for Strategy since inception, you would have had a 31% compound annual growth rate over those 4 years.
Jeez.
Like the worst, if you would have been the worst at picking like the start date and the end date 4 years later, it would be a 31% compound annual growth rate. Like that's a good trade. So like that context, you know, people thinking the sky is falling on these Bitcoin treasury companies and they're never going to like exist. Like they're still sitting on Bitcoin. Like you can operate with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is capital. And I just encourage anybody to take a long horizon on any of these things, because like just taking the same mentality with holding Bitcoin, like granted it's a different product. I encourage everybody to have Bitcoin in cold storage. It's a great exercise to do, but the context of taking a long-term mentality, like you can't understate that, because right, Bitcoin moves. When Bitcoin moves, it moves in like 10 days. And if you're not holding for those 10 days, you miss out on like 80 or 90% of the return. So you're just better off holding than trying to time the market or guess the market. And it's even like amplified to another magnitude for the Bitcoin treasury companies. So there's just a lot of risk associated with that. So yeah, that's my view there, but agree with you.
Yeah. What is your thought on, you know, because again, there's obviously so much made about the treasury companies. Obviously, Strategy is the one that for years has just been in the spotlight of, you know, oh, well, wait until there's, you know, a downturn, or wait until there's this and that happens. And, you know, it's like, how do you know, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. So it's like, it's hard to cut through the noise at times. But what is your prognostication, I guess, on just the overall treasury market in general going forward? I guess, you know, whenever we do have a downturn in Bitcoin price, like how do you see that community of Bitcoin treasury companies, maybe we'll call it, just how do you see them faring over the next few years?
Yeah, I think some will be clear winners for sure. The ones that have like really either like a stellar operating business with great cash flow, which there's very few of those, and most of them have been zombie companies historically,
right?
Or you have a stellar like treasury team that's out in the markets leveraging the collateral in unique ways and providing securities to the market that are unique, like perpetual preferred equity, or identifying collateralized opportunities or ways to generate yield on the Bitcoin that are novel and unique. Worst case scenario is like these companies can just sit on their Bitcoin though. You know, like even if you're an operating company at break even and you break even and you got a paycheck, you live your life, you keep doing whatever, you're not going to sell to another company that doesn't have Bitcoin. Like you're as a takeover target, if any fiat company were to come try to like take over your business, you're going to say, well, at least I have Bitcoin. Like I'm valued at my Bitcoin plus something, you know, like whatever the operating business is worth. And so to that extent, I think that fundamentally all of these Bitcoin treasury companies should trade at a multiple greater than 0. It should be 1 plus something. That could be 1 plus 1. Like it could be much greater than 1. And one of the reasons I have that perspective is because you look at a company like Strategy, what's the cost today to go buy 638,000 Bitcoin on the open market? Yeah. Right? Like what? Insane. That's 70. Yeah. It's like 70 billion dollars of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. How much would that cost? Probably, I don't know, maybe like 125 billion, something like that. And then you think about that on the entire market, and let's just fast forward. Let's think 5-10 years from now. Let's say a company, and I brought this up on another podcast earlier, let's say a company like Costco wants to acquire Bitcoin and they want to acquire like 10,000. but they look on the exchanges and they're like, well, I can't buy 10,000. Like it would just take too long. I don't want to take the price volatility between, let's 400,000 and 750,000 or whatever it's trading at that point. And at that point, acquiring a company that's got all this Bitcoin in its balance sheet looks like a more efficient solution. So, and in order to do that, you're going to have to pay a premium, recognizing like your opportunity cost. So like I could go buy this in the open market, or I can acquire this company. So like, what's the cost benefit between the two? And I think that's kind of where this marketplace goes over the future. But in the short term, I think all these companies are going to be okay. And there's MNAV, a lot of people talk about it as a sentiment indicator. The way I see it is kind of this like price elasticity of demand for the entire marketplace. And that when there's fewer shares of these Bitcoin treasury companies available, the multiples go higher. When there's more shares available, like the multiples drop relative to everything else in the industry. So one thing that nobody's really done yet that I think would be interesting to see is like, what is the multiple on the industry? Like the entire industry, like all Bitcoin treasury companies. And how has that changed over time relative to like PE multiples in AI and all of these other industries? Because I think that's what we really should be comparing, not necessarily any one individual one of these like $500 million market cap companies. Like that's tiny fish in the sea. Like any one of these companies can trade at a 0.8 premium to a 2.5 to 5 to 10 premium very quickly, with a short amount of trading volume. So that's kind of how I view the landscape. There's a lot of opportunity in this space, and a lot of people say like, well, the only strategy is going to win. My combat to that is there are 4,800 banks. There are 4,200 credit unions. There are 5,800 insurance companies, and they all offer the same products. So there is significant room for multiple companies to offer very similar securities with a different flavor to different investor pools.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really, really good point. Do you see so we talked about like one or two of these things. So I want to try to bring this question together with it. The price suppression, which I mentioned a minute ago, potentially, or price being down and stuff like that. But do you see that, and whales, this is the other part of it that you had brought up, and the hodling of initial OGs or whales, bringing those two things together? Do you see whales being a source of the price of Bitcoin being a little bit flatlined, stagnating to a degree, because they are selling potentially out of their Bitcoin and getting into leverage plays, getting into treasury companies? How do you see that dynamic?
Yeah, I think the analytics are pretty clear. I follow James Check on Chain, and it's pretty clear that the long-term holders have exited positions to the extent like they can lock in billion-dollar gains. Like, right on, great trade. You've locked in generational wealth for
no? Yeah,
your entire bloodline for the next millennia. Great trade.
Yeah.
And
so I didn't sell all of it either. It was like, I'm gonna sell a portion of it and lock these in for now.
Right. So, and maybe that goes other places. Maybe that goes into leverage plays, and maybe it goes into altcoins or just different locations. Yeah. But one thing that that I'm incredibly bullish about is that the price hasn't moved much. Like we've seen 80,000 coins liquidated, and we're still above 100K. And that happened like just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Germany sold 50,000 coins on 4th of July last year, and the price went from like 70,000 to 55,000 in like 2 to 3 days. And everybody was running around with their head cut off. And like, it's just like, we're just in a much better place right now. And the market's ability to eat up this capacity is just insane, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty confident about the future from that perspective, because it's going from weak hands from like maybe an individual or an estate or something to a corporation that's literally viewing this as a centuries long worth of a treasury to hold on a balance sheet.
Do you see, like, in saying all that, does it feel like, because it feels like from someone who's amateur at looking at all the numbers and looking at everything that you look at, it feels like a base is set, to your point of, it's wild how the price really hasn't moved that much. And it feels like you're building a really good base of, like you said, of absorption, where people are absorbing that Bitcoin that's coming on the market. We've had some of these little events where or big events where 80,000 are coming on the market, or, Germany, like you've noted. So it feels like there's a really good base being sent, a launch pad where, where I don't know, does retail ever come back in, and that's the launching point, where it's launching from here? Or, is there something else, these other entities are going to come in, other global liquidity pools, sovereigns, you name it, that are coming into that? Like, is that how you kind of see it, where, like, hey, we're setting this launch pad here where, clearly we've had some of these events where if people were going to sell out, they would have sold out to a large extent, and they haven't.
Yeah.
We've been about a plateau. Is that, yeah. Okay.
That's definitely how I see it. Is we've had just in the last couple of days, I think 2 of the largest long liquidation days in of 2025. So to that extent, like, wiping out any leverage on those exchanges is certainly bullish for, like, establishing a new base, like a clean base with no leverage, ready to set new all-time highs. So I definitely see it that way. The other just main thing I keep in the back of my mind is, like, there's just not, people think that there's a lot of leverage in the system, at least like with Saylor and the Bitcoin Treasury companies and stuff, but there's really not. Like, this isn't like at least the Bitcoin Treasury, like equities, and maybe there's just more outstanding derivative leverage out there that's just getting wiped out, and that's quite possible. But it's just, like, in the fundamental equation, there's just not a ton of leverage on like balance sheet leverage. It's funny, I've seen a couple of the posts, like, trying to slam dunk on Saylor's premium, or the strategy premium, the multiple to net asset value declining, and, like, the story being dead. It's like, well, they've hardly got any leverage on the balance sheet, and they just introduced these new products to the market that have never existed before, that are disrupting a $300 trillion market, and they have better attributes than every other fixed income instrument ever created. And, like, it's like you're bearish here, and it doesn't make any sense. It's going to take forever for the market to figure these things out, but I don't really care. I've got a horizon that I feel really comfortable with, and I've taken a long-term view on Bitcoin for a very long time. So I'm here for the long run.
Yeah, same. And that's, the revolutionary in me, sees it as the die on the hill. There is no going back for me. I don't know how there's going back for society at this point. I mean, truly, I don't.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the cat's out of the bag, toothpaste out of the tube, whatever analogy you want to throw at it. The answer's there, and it just feels like there's gonna be a couple % of people that get it and really grok it, and then, like, pull everyone else across the finish line. And, like you said, it's gonna be a long time horizon ish. I mean, at least 10 or 20 years it looks like, from my angle, minimum, just because of demographics, stuff like that. So I don't know what you think. I mean, like, I see the demographic shift being the big catalyst in my eyes, the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. The demographic shift is a big one. And I said this on our live stream the other day. It's like, okay, explaining to somebody to put Bitcoin in cold storage is like, I think it's a simple transaction, but it's actually, it's complicated for a lot of people.
Once you know it's simple.
But you gotta get them to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
And, like, do something that is just weird, and they've got to learn. Like, there's friction associated with that. And I said this on the stream. It's like, okay, take the most average person you've ever met, and then recognize, or just like, imagine the most average person in America, 50th percentile, and then just know that 50% of America is dumber than that. And, like, that's like, those are the hurdles that we got to get over, right? Like
Yeah.
that, just the math and like the numbers behind it. So it's a bit tricky. So like it's doable, but you've got to provide things to them in a way that's easier to consume. So the advancement of the ETFs coming out to the market, the advancement of these Bitcoin treasury companies offering equity, and now this, digital credit. And I think the digital credit is this huge landscape that, in my mind, is like this is the kick the door wide open sort of thing that happens over the next 4 to 6 years, maybe 8 years, 4 to 8 years, where you've got a large part of the population that's approaching retirement right now with the baby boomer generation. A large portion of them are living off retirement accounts that are primarily constructed of bond portfolios, and those bond portfolios have a decent amount of risk. They've got duration risk, they've got interest rate risk, they've got liquidity risk, and all of those different, like the amalgamation of all of those different risks across a large portfolio of just constructed of bonds is tricky. Like that, to me, is a blatantly obvious spot for disruption. And like, I'm just imagining a scenario like all these boomers get to like age 80 and like 20 years from now, and half of the bonds go bust because technology just disrupts half of your bond portfolio. AI disrupts half of your bond portfolio. What do you do? Like you're anticipated living off this bond portfolio, and what if 10% of them are worthless? That's a crisis, let alone 20, 30, 40%. And so like you have to replace that, or you have to have a hedge that can provide you this like technology. It's effectively like a technology hedge that's providing you additional yield with less risk. And that's kind of been my recent mission, is this like explanation of this risk profile and trying to wrap your head around like these instruments that strategists created. It seemed too good to be true. What's the catch? Where's the pie in the face? It's like, well, there's not a catch. There's not a pie in the face. These are actually less risky. They're way over collateralized. They're not dependent on future cash flows. If there's debasement in the currency, the asset that's backing these instruments is going to grow drastically, which makes them even stronger. And the experience is going to get better over time as well. It's like one of the reasons these are priced so attractive is because they're brand new. There's no track record. But once these have a track record, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, there's a larger number of people that will be able to purchase them and put them into their portfolios. So I really think this is the biggest idea. This is the best. This is the frontier that people need to be focused on. But this message is even harder to communicate than it's harder to communicate than the money's broken. It's like, well, the money's broken and the bonds are broken. The capital markets are broken. They need these new pieces of technology to help them. So that's what we're working on. We're trying to fix the fixed income market and fix the bond problem, fix the credit problem, and make the world a better place.
Everything you are learning in this episode is completely moot and does not matter if you hold Bitcoin and are still leaving it on an exchange or sharing keys and your KYC information with a third party. This is your wake-up call now. You are only self-sovereign if you alone hold the keys to your wealth. 100% self-custody sounds daunting at first. Believe me, I lost 2 years of massive gains over a decade ago because I was worried about taking the few minutes it took to understand self-custody. And that's exactly why you need to talk to my friends, Tony Yazbek and his team at the Bitcoin Way. We just interviewed Tony recently, has over 80,000 views, an overwhelming response. People love his story and the simplicity he shares of how easy it is to custody and take ownership of the greatest money we've ever seen. They'll train you to do it right the first time. Head on over to thebitcoinway.com/Brandon to schedule a free 30-minute consultation today. Their 5-star rated service is exactly what you need. Quit sitting on your hands like I did and get started today. Again, that's thebitcoinway.com/BRANDON. What do we have here? 12-word seed plate. After a long wait and everything being sold out, this is now here, the 12-word seed plate. For those who have been asking, store your generational wealth in titanium forever. Do not make the mistake of storing it on paper. This can withstand fire, nuclear fallout, wind. We've driven over it. We shot hockey pucks at it. We've checked it. We've thrown it. We've done everything possible. Do not pass down your generational wealth on paper. Put it in titanium. Go to stampseed.com. Put in code Brandon, BRANDON, for 15% off store-wide. Do not be a statistic. Show your family how much you love them. Store your generational wealth forever in titanium. Code Brandon, 15% off store-wide.
It is amazing. And it's, I was talking to Jeff Booth the other day, and it was just like this problem. It's like, well, how do you, it feels like at times like the Bitcoin, you're like up in the North Pole and just like working on this system, this new system, like out, out of like purview almost. And it's like, what, like 10 years from now, we're just going to like, here, like unveil it. Like here it is, society. And it's like, you're kind of like, what do? You're trying to build alongside, you're like in secret, private, but then you're like out in the open doing it. You're like treasury companies, it's on, it's in publicly traded companies. It's just like all over the place. It's this thing that you can't control. It's just, it's a good virus. It's a mind virus, and it's wild. And the altruist, so we just touched on two of these things. So this was perfect segue into the altruist and purist in me wants to know, will retail ever come back, or they too broke? We're laughing a minute ago about the average person, 50% that, just like, and then think of people under that. But it is, I mean, Bitcoin is a humility ego test. It's not an IQ test. And so we've all gone through that gauntlet, and to humble ourselves to realize this is the future. So in saying that, like, what do you see in terms of retail ever coming back? I mean, are people just too broke, unfortunately, to get Bitcoin? Like, how do we square the circle?
I think retail will come back, but I think they come back because of something painful. Unfortunately, like I feel like how everybody finds their way here is like generally either you're like a technocrat super curious about computers and computer money, like you grew up with computers, or you see a problem. And like you look at strategy, right? Saylor tells a story all the time. Like, my company was going to die. I was going to retire. I had $500 million in the bank, and I couldn't beat Microsoft. And like, I had nowhere to park my cash. And 99% of my peers, all of their companies died. So like, I had to take a risk, and like they lucked out, and now they lucked out through a lot of work, but now they're in like an offensive position and seeing like this really big opportunity to like fix a lot of things in the financial construction of the world. So to your question of if retail comes back, I do think so, but I don't think it's in like medium of exchange. Like a lot of these people are focused on medium of exchange, and I really don't think it's medium of exchange. I think it's more of like this store of value and unit of account, like really flipping your perspective upside down on a unit of account. Like the common image that comes out is like the price of a home over time. Priced in Bitcoin. I think we need a lot more of that in like a lot, in so many other ways. And one way I've tried to emphasize this in the equity markets is looking at historical company earnings over time priced in Bitcoin at the time that they released earnings. And 99% of the time it's a downward trend to the right. So like the earnings look far more volatile when they're priced in Bitcoin, and they look much worse when priced in Bitcoin than when they're priced in fiat. So it's like generally most of these companies have a great story in the fiat world, but the reality is their purchasing power is going down drastically. You could do it priced in gold as well. Same thing. So I think retail will come back. I think we'll see euphoria. I think we'll see a lot of monetary printing just in general over the next like couple years. Why? Because the incentives are aligned for that. Like, I mean, we're going to go into midterms next November, and when does like campaigning for that's going to start in like January, February next year. And so like, if you were in political power here and you want to hold your seat, you want the economy rocking and rolling. By the time you get there, if there was printing early in 2025 or something, and the economy was rocking and rolling, and then you get to 26 and we get to a lull, like that's just not like the political incentives aren't constructed to influence that. So yeah, I'm really bullish for the like Q4, Q1, 26. I think there's it's gonna be a good time to hold assets, good time to hold companies that are at the technological forefront. I think everything's probably going to rip. We will see like another parabolic move at some point in time here in the future, and I think like that frenzy is what causes retail to come back in the door. Um, you know, as Bitcoin breaks into new all-time highs, let's say it goes to 150 or 200,000, that's like another alarm bell for like just the general retail sentiment to say, holy crap, I need to take a look at this. The other thing I'm really keeping an eye out here is PE ratios across other equity markets. And it seems like a lot of things are overextended from like an AI perspective. I think AI is going to be incredibly valuable. It's going to be totally transformational in how society works. I think all companies that are working on AI are just going to make so much money. It's insane. But there's going to be a lot of competition. And I think we could experience some of this like market frenzy, very similar to like the dot-com bubble in 2001, which I didn't live through, but I've researched quite a bit, that there was this, blow off top. Everything that was .com had blow off top, which we're kind of seeing right now. Everything AI has got this like really like straight vertical trajectory. But after that, in 2001, there was a snap back to reality, and a lot of that capital left .coms and flew into value companies. So it flew into like insurance companies, financials, companies like Colgate, like that were providing consumer staples, things like that. And if you think about where do I park my money? Let's just say I invested in AI, and where do I park my money after I'm done with AI? Like, let's say I rode things to the top, like I'm long Palantir, long NVIDIA, and you're like, oh my God, this is the top, this is it. And I like press the eject button, and you're sitting here on cash, and you're like, it could still keep ripping from there. And you're like, I don't really know where to put my money. I don't want to hold it in dollars because inflation's high, or, the basement's cooking. So where do you put your money? And I don't want to hold it in treasuries because the rate of inflation is greater than treasuries. So Bitcoin backed credit starts to look really attractive at that point. You're like, wait, hold on. I can take all of my winnings, shove it into something that's paying me $10 a year per share at like 10% interest, and it's stable. There's like way less risk here. That starts to become a very valuable value proposition. And the strategy, like on the other side of that, would be thrilled because they would be monetizing, they'd be taking that capital in and buying Bitcoin with it, and providing a stronger instrument for everybody that's interested in it. So that's and I think that's incredibly bullish for Bitcoin. The plumbing is so much different than any cycle past, where we had this like the Bitcoin blow off top and then this like super deep bear market. The whole plumbing is completely different than times past. We have ETFs, we have Bitcoin backed credit, and we have these other, vehicles that can capture and store this value and capitalize on different moments in time and different points in the cycle. So I think retail's coming back. I think the excitement in these fixed income instruments is going to be electric when and if there is a blow off top. And yeah, I think the next 12 months are, I think, going to get pretty nuts.
It's wild. Do you see things going kind of just extending, I guess? I mean, like even the 4-year cycle, or, things of that nature. Do you think it just extended? Do you think it kind of blows it apart, or how do you see the cycles playing out?
Yeah, I think the cycles are going to look a little bit different than they have in the past. Again, because the plumbing has changed. This business cycle is also pushed back just in general, given change in like the underlying landscape of the financial markets with like tariffs and taxes and how all that, the political regimes and all that stuff. So this cycle is certainly, I think, just delayed. Like it's going to be pushed back a little bit longer. But to think about the future cycles, we're also at a point where stock to flow has also fell below gold, and it's going to get less and less here, as the future halving events. So I think this, like, super big, I think the volatility is going to dampen, is effectively what I'm getting at. I think the volatility will dampen, which will be good, I think, for everybody, to have a cycle where there's not an 80% drawdown. Maybe it's 50. And then companies that are offering Bitcoin back credit, hold the floor, because you've got no leverage and the ability to capitalize on like a really good debt market to keep buying Bitcoin in bear markets efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah. And you may think of earlier, I forgot to mention it was one of the things that really orange pilled me, like you said, if we need a lot more education around the price versus value, and just seeing the, you saving in Bitcoin, how things are getting cheaper in your life. As I know, it's one of the things that really affected me 8 years ago, whatever it was around then. And just the network effect in general, seeing the log chart of Bitcoin and seeing, oh yeah, wow, it's a network effect. So I think, like you said, and I know like Marty, Bent, they have like opportunity cost. They just came out with the thing you can plug in on your browser, and it shows that everything priced in Bitcoin phenomenal, or priced in Bitcoin 21. So like, to your point, I wanted to mention some of those things because I think they are like real tangible things that people can use in their daily life to really like grok Bitcoin like on a daily basis. Like, wow, like this is real. It's not just some like, oh, sit there and just wait for it, tap on it, like, hey, you're gonna do something type of thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's so novel. You're right. Like what everybody knows about money is genetic. It's what your parents knew about money, and it's what their parents knew about money, and it's what their parents knew about money. And it's when you sit back and you think about that for a while, it's like, yeah, money is, you can have a different money. It's like hard for people to conceptualize. You're like, yeah, like there's no like, I got to use the dollar because that's what I've always used. That's what everybody's always used. It was like, no, you can do something different, but breaking that mentality is like literally in our DNA. Like what people know about money is like literally in their DNA, and that's a hard barrier to crack through, and requires a little bit of breaking out of the matrix, and trying to like just test something a little, being willing, kind of the ego test, being willing to shatter your reality and build back from the ground. Which, so I'll tell you, from working with people in finance, nobody wants to do that. Like, like I used to run around a bunch of the tall buildings in New York, and I will tell you, nobody wants to do that. And when you start to shatter their reality, they shut down very quickly. So we got a lot of work to do.
We do. And I mean, that's what, I just talked about this. I go back to the demographic shift. Unfortunately, like it's not, older people, like, people give older people a hard time, or a boomer this and boomer that, but it's, a lot of it in a sense is just like, what, it's harder to grok things because you spent, your entire life for so much more time. Now you're telling me that I need to change the system all of a sudden. And so it's like, it just doesn't, that's why it's harder. It's not just because like, oh, this person's dumb, or like this person, whatever. It's just like, they've been, how do you tell a fish he's wet if he's been in the water his whole life? And if he's been in the water for 7 years, it's much harder than someone's been in the water for 10 years. Like it's just, it's very, very simple. So yeah, I love that you say that, because it's people. And I'll go back to this. And I was talking to Jeff Booth about this as well. And it's just, the more I study this, in just 15, 20 years myself personally studying money, started with gold and silver and understanding what money really was, you realize, to your point, it's not going to, like, you just give someone Bitcoin or you give people money or, cash or whatever, like the old saying of like, you got to teach people to fish, not just give them fish. Like, no one learns really. I mean, maybe you're incentivized to go learn about it a little bit just because you have some now, but you can't make a horse drink. You can lead them to water. And that's where everything goes back to this mental state. And that's what it is. It's a personal development journey is really what it is. I mean, it's like logic and all the numbers, and you're so good with this stuff, like numbers, you can do all these things, but at the end of the day, if someone's not accepting it, they just say, no, 2 + 2 is 5, Jeff. Like, sorry, your 2 + 2 4 doesn't make sense to me. It's like, what do you do? Like, it's tough.
Yeah. And that is what's really exciting about some of these equity plays and the fixed income plays is that it's a different wrapper. Like it's a different type of pill. It's like the orange pill, the Bitcoin orange
Yeah.
pill. It's big to swallow. It's like my water bottle here. It's a bit tough. But something a little bit in a more attractive wrapper, like an equity or uh, a bond, is a little bit easier for people to consume, and that's an exciting uh, a narrative to build on. Like, I don't know, just go look on Reddit and how many people are talking about equities, or go on Stock Twits, or any of these
Yeah.
other. Like, everybody knows what an equity is, um, but all equities are priced in fiat dollars, and like 99% of people that are trading equities, just like their minds thinking fiat dollars. So they're not thinking about it in Bitcoin terms. So when that's another like vector to like another surface to communicate with people that are not Bitcoiners about like things that are happening, and why you think that there's value in these other things. Like, so that's what I really like talking about with strategy in particular. Is like, why do I think that equity is valuable? Well, I think the equity is valuable because they had $500 million 5 years ago, and now they have $72 billion, and they've been the best performing stock in the last 4.5 years. And like, simple message, right? How then people ask the question, well, how did a company go from $500 million to $70 billion, and Bitcoin hasn't even gone up that much? Like the questions that like people can start to ask are like, okay, well, I get this now because it's equity analysis, not not money analysis. So like this earth shattering metric, or this earth shattering change your vision on money, is like it's a little easier to swallow. And bonds, like this bond story, is, the more I'm looking into this stuff and I'm pulling threads on like the fixed income market, the the story here is actually, it seems like really easy to tell. um Yields are higher, liquidity is higher, the collateral coverage is higher, like every part of them is better than the existing things that are in the market. So like, I think people should be able to conceptualize that, but it's we're testing it every day.
Yeah. Isn't that the
Yeah.
truth?
Mm-hmm.
But so like, and you kind of just mentioned this too. This is something I wanted to ask you about, just the money, Bitcoin being money. In my opinion, the first time we've ever had money, real money, with these qualities and properties that Bitcoin has. So how do you protect, like, do you worry that we are, we're on this fine line, like you're trying to battle, the country, nation states, corporations, everyone needs Bitcoin, individuals, families, everyone needs Bitcoin, but Bitcoin doesn't need, these things. So how do you battle the, just like the ethos of Bitcoin not being captured? Because I go back to this when we think of it, just the mind, right? Because our mind, or the psychological aspect of Bitcoin. And if people are conditioned to think, because there's a lot of conditioning that we already have to what we've been saying, and then it has to kind of be unconditioned or reconditioned. So if Bitcoin's going into these treasury companies, or it's going into Wall Street and these things that, again, need Bitcoin, these things, everything needs Bitcoin. So how do you protect against that, I guess, and protect against like, hey guys, this is something, these aren't the same. Bitcoin isn't just like an asset inside the system. And that's what was making me think of it too. You were saying how equities, they're all priced in dollars. Well, Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is priced in dollars, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
It's a new protocol, right? So how do you, bring all that together? It's complicated to the point of what you're saying. This is nuanced and it is complicated. So how do you guard against that? I guess just through education that you're doing.
Like you're talking like corporations, like countries taking Bitcoin from corporations, or like safeguarding the security of the network kind of thing. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to me is you look at it and you say, how, Bitcoin can't be defeated, right, at this point,
Yeah.
technologically, or like, right, it's like Bitcoin
Yeah.
can't, that's not the thing. And Sailor's been talking about this, right? Like the biggest thing is more of a psyop. It's a psyop to think like, oh, Bitcoin's just part of the existing system. It's just like another asset. We create a new asset and it's just part of the system. We still need dollars and fiat in order to have Bitcoin type of mentality. And the average person just doesn't know. They don't understand, to your point. Like, so they just see it as,
Mhm.
well, if dollars didn't exist, then Bitcoin wouldn't either. So how do you guard against that, that ethos and protect the ethos?
Yeah, I think ethos is definitely important. Having this freedom element. I think it'll just kind of. I think personally, I think it'll bear out a little bit, just given that there's this general freedom element of holding Bitcoin. Like the self custody
Yep.
Bitcoin maxis are always going to
Yeah.
exist, and they're like, to the extent that uh, the Bitcoin price rallies to $5 trillion, $10 trillion, those voices are going to get a lot louder. They're going to get
Yeah.
involved in politics. They're going to start running businesses. All of the Bitcoin is going to
That's a
go into
great point.
different areas. So like anybody that's early in this like sphere of the Bitcoin world, what I've seen is not a lot of them are exiting. They're identifying opportunity to improve the world.
Mm.
So I'm, which kind of like my role, like what I'm doing right now at Strive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I, I, I left reinsurance, fiat world. I didn't have a job for 6 months, and I found an opportunity where I could make a difference in Bitcoin. It's like, this is like, I probably didn't have to work, but uh,
Right.
this is an opportunity for me to make the world a better place. And like, as all of this it improves, like everybody that's part of the network, you realize that very quickly, just by holding the Bitcoin itself, like you have a duty to protect the network.
Mm-hmm.
And so, are there going to be bad actors everywhere? Absolutely. Are there going to be people that try to um, destroy things, or bad people in power? Absolutely. I think that's just inevitable, and that's a part of living in a just a world with different
Yeah.
types of people. So um, I think the incentives are aligned personally, that to protect the network in the most appropriate way. Uh, and as these Bitcoiners become more wealthy, they're going to be in positions of power, running businesses, and getting integrated in politics. And that's just like the natural progression, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So that like should incentivize appropriate incentive alignment, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's a great point. I agree as well. I mean, those freedom maximalists, the people inside the community will continue to get wealthier and wealthier, and will start venturing into these other places and become louder. So that's probably the best way to put it. So I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
So I've got one of my buddies here in the state that I live in. He was like, "Oh, the state is capitally repulsive," um, and I just laughed, and I was like, "Well, okay, well, why don't you do something about it?" And that kind of hurt. That kind of hurt a little bit, because it was like, "Oh, I just want somebody else to fix it for me," And I was like, "Well, you gotta make a change," and it's the the insurance industry in the state that I live in is actually one of the most favorable industries. It's one of the most favorable states from a regulatory standpoint for insurance companies. And then you think back, I was like, why? Well, because insurance companies, like 100 years ago, had all the money. Like they had power. They controlled the regulatory environment. They controlled the politics. And like, who's going to have the power in the future? It's like, well, it's the Bitcoiners. The Bitcoiners are going to have all the
Yeah.
money. And they should be running companies. They should be making the world a better place. And everyone will be incentivized to do that. Um, so you think of the natural progression. It's like, uh, the cream is going to float to the top, and those people they'll be viewed as very like intelligent people in their own communities, because like you must be intelligent because you're wealthy and you're
Mm-hmm.
happy, you've got a good family. Like I can see your prosperity and you're hopeful, and like in my opinion, those are the people that will succeed in uh in politics in the future, because there's a lot of things to not be hopeful about in the world. So you're like, those types of people are inspiring, that have this, um, energy about them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would love for to get your thoughts on silver. We mentioned silver and gold, like from the precious metals earlier. I believe you did, right, kind of at the top. And we're obviously seeing stuff we haven't seen in silver and well, at least I guess 10, 15 years. And obviously it's the global, a tier one asset, just with central banks and stuff like that. And obviously very entrenched. Speaking of demographic shifts, obviously the older generations, legacy institutions, very entrenched. And so I would love your thoughts just on what you're seeing there, maybe what that's signaling in the broader economy. Obviously M2, we touched on that briefly earlier, and just, the movement in the M2, and in the Fed rate cuts. So kind of, we touched on a little bit of these things, but I would love maybe just some of your thoughts. You can touch on any of that, but there's so many things happening, alluding to what you said earlier. I think there's going to be things that are ripping here, but we already have silver and gold, really moving, M2. So I would love for you to just kind of unpack this for a minute, just kind of digesting all this.
Yeah, and this is something that I'm doing analysis on, just kind of continuously watching how these markets are moving. But if you look at some of these precious metals over a time horizon, they perform how you'd think Bitcoin would perform in the long run. So like if you look at them on different time horizons, like 5-year time horizons going back in history, like those precious metals are outperforming the S&P 500 in like most time horizons that you look at. So it's a historical liquidity vacuum. Those precious metals have historically been a liquidity vacuum in times of excess liquidity, with the exception of like 14 to 18, like 2014 to 2018, where there was the stock, there was just incredible stock market rallies as a result of the 0809 financial crisis, and starting from a low base there. But so yeah, I keep an eye on them. I look at things priced in gold. Like I'll look at Bitcoin priced in gold. So that's something I'm kind of looking at, is like, what is the price of Bitcoin relative to the price of gold, and looking at kind of peaks and troughs in that perspective. And historically, gold has moved before Bitcoin has moved in past bull markets. So I think, I get accused of being a perma bull, but like seeing gold rip is it makes me bullish about Bitcoin, just looking at the historical trends of like, okay, gold is ripped. There's been like a blow off top, and it's like a shift back into taking this increased energy and putting it in different places. So that's something I'm looking at. The federal interest rates are interesting to watch how this stuff moves relative to like yield curves and mortgage rates and things like that too. Clearly, there's a lot of pressure in the housing market. Everything looks overvalued from like every perspective you look at. The relative prices relative to incomes is just like totally overblown. Interest rates are high, affordability is low. A lot of people locked in these mortgages like very low in the, when interest rates were zero. A lot of people aren't moving. Tax liabilities are increasing because property values are going up. Everybody's kind of pinned. It seems like the Fed is kind of pinned. There's like a no-win solution. You raise interest rates, everything's screwed. You drop interest rates, everything's screwed for different reasons. So it's like, it's just like they seem like really pinned here. And obviously I think the market is forecasting like another couple 50 or 75 basis point rate cut over the next couple of months. It'll be interesting to see like market dynamics and how this kind of flows through. But and thinking of the relativities in the bond market, what happens with bond prices when interest rates drop? Bond prices rise because the yields are falling. So there's just a lot of interplay and movement with all of these different things, and it's all interconnected. And it'll be interesting to see that. One thing I'll be trying to analyze too is if the market starts to treat Bitcoin as like a risk off asset, or like how the correlation changes to interest rates and these other instruments in other sectors. So just something I'm keeping a lookout on.
It's just fascinating times we are in right now, truly.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah.
100%.
Boy, oh boy. What what are your, I know we've talked about this on some other ones, so we don't need to, anything too crazy, but for maybe people that are here, just explaining, what you guys just did at Strive with similar as Bitcoin Treasury. And the question I have with it, actually, to try to take a little bit of a different angle with it, since I
Yeah.
know you have talked about it a bit, is, do you think, this is the first one that I know of. I think it is the first one. Everyone's kind of so focused on, like, corporations are like buying Bitcoin, like, oh, there's another one. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, Strive's acquiring Bitcoin from
Yeah.
another company. So it's a first, a Bitcoin first. And
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of mark in the sand. Do you think that this is something that, will happen more in the future? Like, is this something where, what was kind of leading up to this, and then, how it came together, but also does this kind of strike a new, like, oh yeah, wow, we can just do things. You can just do this too. Is that kind of
Yeah.
start a new signal or a new path?
Yeah. That's a great question. First, I'm going to start with my role too, because we were going to hit on that at the beginning.
Yes,
You asked me
yeah.
what my role is. So previously I was a VP of Bitcoin strategy. In terms of what I did everything that I could do. It's like, I thought about Bitcoin strategy. I worked with, on thinking about custody. I worked on, getting our merger done, thinking about creation of the board, investor presentations, like it worked on the insurance, literally everything under the sun. And it became very clear, like, there's just a lot to do. Like with all of these treasury companies, there's a lot to do. Like you need a really big team. And I was recently promoted to the chief risk officer. So one of the things that I'm in charge of is managing the risk profile of the Bitcoin treasury itself. So thinking about, like, what is the credit profile? What is the volatility? Creating these new metrics that haven't been used before. Like, this is a role that no other Bitcoin treasury company has. Like, no other Bitcoin treasury company has a risk officer. And I think it's super necessary, because these Bitcoin treasury companies are very similar to like an insurance company, because you're managing a balance sheet of assets, and you need to manage your liabilities relative to your assets over time, and think about the risk profile. You're doing Monte Carlo simulations, probabilistic simulations, scenario testing, hedging possibilities, communication to the market, like all of these things on top of, managing just general broader enterprise risk management. So thinking through all of those aspects, it's definitely a role that is needed. And like, hopefully build out an actuarial team to help me with like all of the math and the statistics behind the scene. And somebody that can, blast on ChatGPT all the time. And then obviously staying on top of True North and are building out that network. So I've got a lot of, I'm wearing a lot of hats these days. And so thinking about your question here, like getting to the root, I think this was a fascinating transaction. This will be a case study in like Bitcoin treasury land for a decade, probably, because it really is a signal of something else that you could do. It's another tool in your toolbox. And I really think this is a win-win for both companies. Like, it wouldn't have got done in 4 days if it wasn't a win-win for both companies. So having a balance sheet that is powerful, and these two companies combining to provide a better credit profile for issuing different instruments to the market, that's interesting. One side of the equation, the Bitcoin side. And then the other side is leveraging our board members and our largest shareholder, Vivek Ramaswamy, and his healthcare and biotech background, polishing up the healthcare side of the business and monetizing it in a different way. One of the ways you can monetize it is like spinning it off. Like, you could potentially spin it off, polish it clean and spin it off. Or alternatively, like, he's well known for the architecture and the construction of Roivant, which created these separate little business verticals underneath the business that provided dividends to the underlying business. So I think there's just so much opportunity there to monetize the healthcare side of the business that I think is like a little bit of a cherry on top that could be really appealing and exciting. So I think it all really comes down to like a story. Like what is the story? Like, can we be powerful together? Is there a win-win for both sides of these, both sides of the equation? And I think there will be a lot of those types of opportunities in the future. Stronger companies will prevail, and other companies that maybe are a little less strong can find a more valuable partner. So really, that's what we are. Like, we're partners, more valuable partner for managing the future market environment. So the other thing I think is interesting is the ability to do the same thing in private markets. You do the same thing in private markets. You do the same thing with other digital asset treasuries, but you can convince the other digital asset treasuries like, hey, I will only acquire you if you convert 100% of your assets into Bitcoin like today.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, so like, I think there's going to be opportunities like that in the future. If there's any weakness, like imagine if Bitcoin could acquire like, I don't know, fart coin, you know, just like thinking about cycles past, and you've got like all of these, you've got the core coins, and then you've got all of these other altcoins that are, or like NFTs. Imagine if Bitcoin could just like acquire a bunch of NFTs and just convert it into Bitcoin. And like that is possibility under a corporate umbrella and a corporate infrastructure. And that's pretty cool.
That is wild. That's an interesting thought. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's
it's like,
wow.
That's not a this week thing, but you know, I don't think that's a this week thing. It's Friday, so like I really hope it's not a this week thing. But that's a possibility that could happen on the horizon, and especially if you think about if altcoins get crushed in a potential bear market and Bitcoin, you know, holds up because it's got better plumbing. There's a really good timing opportunity there. Depending on, you know, some of these other things. So yeah, I'm super excited about the space. Like, our team is whoop ass, and it's like very like hand selected. Every single person on our board is hand selected. Everybody in the company itself all speaks the same language because it's an asset management company. So like, I've talked to the people that sell our ETFs, and we can communicate. We talk about Bitcoin together, you know. It's like, oh yeah, what are we doing? Like, oh, we start, you know, shooting shit on like all the perpetual preferred instruments, and we're like all speaking the same language. So it's really unique. It's really cool. Our team behind the scenes is incredible. We got a team of like, I don't know, 30 or 35 people, and a lot of tools that we can leverage at different points in time. So really exciting times. Yeah.
That is so cool. So speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about that. So it's a great segue about just altcoins. So do you see anything with, again, we've kind of touched on this in certain ways of people not understanding, not seeing the forest from the trees, and getting sucked into, you know, whether it's retail, getting sucked into altcoins, altcoin season, and there's gonna, you know, these things are happening, and Bitcoin dominance is, you know, breaking support. It's gonna, you know, we're gonna go back the other direction. Again, missing the forest from the trees. You're playing the fiat game versus Bitcoin being a completely separate protocol, right? So what do you see in terms of that? Because I know there are some people that watch our channel, so I get the comments, and you know, they're people in the altcoin space. So I'd love you to touch on just kind of what you're seeing there, and again, the pitch for, hey, you know, these short-term gains might seem great, but here's the real game over here.
What other altcoin has a siphon set up to the fixed income market, the largest pool of capital on the planet?
It's another great example, or another great example.
Like, there's not one. Like, a trick question. There's not one. Yeah, it's Bitcoin, and I brought this up on our stream last Wednesday. I was like, okay, let's say an ETH Treasury company starts to issue perpetual preferred equity. How do you underwrite that? Like, what is the risk profile? Like, okay, then you Google Ethereum and you like watch Vitalik talk, and you're like, wow, okay, I got to underwrite that guy. Like, do I trust that guy? You know? And you just start to go like really,
Oh
you start to
man.
really quickly go like, I don't know how I even like remotely begin to price this thing. Um, and then you look up like Bitcoin, and like this obviously Sailor is going to come up, and then you see like Bitcoin mining, and you learn about the protocol, and you're like, wait, okay, I can underwrite this. This
Mhm.
is a protocol backed by decentralized computers. I'm like, okay, I can underwrite this much easier than anything with a centralized authority. And Bitcoin's the only one without a centralized authority.
Mhm.
So, if again, what I talked about earlier, like I think if you're going to kick the market wide open, you got to kick down the door of the fixed income market. And like Jesse Myers got this great image, and it shows like fixed income market, real estate market, money market, equity market, and like
Yeah.
all of the cryptos are playing around in this like little pool of money,
Mhm.
which is like I don't know 100 trillion.
Yeah.
And so like Bitcoin's dominating in this like pool of money. And then you get the equity market, and you're like, okay, well, now you got Bitcoin companies, and you got some Ethereum companies, and some of these other DATs, digital asset treasuries. And you've only got one right now that is connected to the fixed income market. And the fact of the matter is that's where all the money's at.
Yeah.
And they're also providing a product that provides very similar exposure to like real estate. So you now connected little like monetary siphons to $600 trillion of capital that no other altcoin is connected to. That's the story. That's this is the biggest story. Like this is it. It's not altcoins. It's not these other protocols. Like, are they going to exist? Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Do they have a place in the world? Sure. Like everybody's going to play around with
Yeah.
art and you know these other DeFi protocols. Like everybody's going to be playing with all sorts of stuff. But the big story is connection to the biggest pools of capital, and that's the mission. That's it. So like, yeah, people can go play with their altcoins, yeah, but like the story, the institutional grade story is Bitcoin.
Such a great thought, because it's the way I always kind of liken it, or answer it. It is, what are your enemies doing? Like you said, what are other companies? Are they tapping into Ethereum? Is Russia tapping into Ethereum? Like there's some signal within all that noise. Like there's no one, like they're not using XRP or Ethereum or some of these other coins in order to do that, because it just comes out of attack vectors, right? Like the largest attack surfaces, like you said, centralized entities in whatever shape, form, or fashion create bigger and bigger attack vectors in surface area to attack. Simple,
Yeah.
period, end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on just the stable coin, Tether, just everything that's going on there? I would love a minute just on your thoughts on just, is it going to extend dollar dominance, them recycling and taking they're obviously using the treasuries, and they're using that coupon to come back and buy more Bitcoin. Like, how do you see this playing out? Because again, that's a big objection. Speaking of altcoins, that's well, if you guys didn't have Tether, then Bitcoin would be nothing, ha ha ha. Right. So like, how do you see this kind of playing out going forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tether is one of the largest purchasers of treasuries. So um, the US has every incentive to like keep them there because they have this insatiable demand. Like
Yeah.
they want to keep filling up the coffers. So and obviously the world is moving into a little bit more of a digital ecosystem and a digital space. So like the demand is there, and I think it could extend dollar dominance. I think that is definitely possible, and ultimately it's backed and kind of collateralized by the UST, like treasuries and Bitcoin. So like uh, every year there's Tether FUD, but ultimately I think it's really good for Bitcoin because it's again just a constant bid that's shoving
Mm-hmm.
dollars into a massive like Bitcoin treasury, providing some digital infrastructure for a dollar to be transported a stable dollar to be transported anywhere across the globe very quickly. So yeah, I think it's going to be around. And it's funny. I was just on LinkedIn, which is just a hilarious place to go.
Oh,
It's just a
you
laugh.
poor
Like if
soul.
you need a laugh,
Yeah.
if you need a laugh, just go over to LinkedIn.
You're brave.
And I just, it was funny because I was just like looking at these, companies that are doing these like stable coin type of reinsurance transactions, and they're like, this is the next big thing. I'm like, well, but it's still dollars, like it's
Yeah.
stable coins,
Yep.
but like cool, it's moving fast, but it's like at the end of the day, it's still dollars. So like I didn't see a ton of innovation in and of itself. So um, I'm glad people are playing with them, and I'm glad it's working because it's putting a constant bid on Bitcoin, which is great, and and gold, I guess too. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I haven't contemplated it too hard. I know some people are a little doomy on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd really like to try to wrap my head around it a little bit more, like the downstream implications, because um, I I struggle to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I tend to agree too with you. I mean, like you said, it's one of those things where like you're playing with dollars. It's like, I get it. It's good for emerging countries or, people around the world that need it, and it has its place, which is good because you're creating access for them, which is great. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin is, you only need Bitcoin. You don't need these things at the end of the day. So like long term, it's like you said, it maybe extends a little bit, but we have Bitcoin. We have decentralized finance, right? We have something better in dollars. We have something better in decentralized finance. All these things are in Bitcoin, and it is the killer app. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin, right?
Right.
Last little thing here, just thoughts on price. Not price so much. We've already kind of talked about that a little bit, and just where Bitcoin's at. Maybe it's behind the curve a little bit. It'll probably catch up here going forward, type of thing. But what is your thought on the first one of two is, as marketers and content creators, are we lying to people when we're saying, 0.1 Bitcoin will buy you a house someday? It'll buy you, this and that. 0.001 6.15 American HODL, right? Get to this. I would love your thought on this, because we're constantly having to, you're constantly trying to, yeah, and again, you and I talked about this in Vegas. But it's like
reframe
yeah,
it.
reframe. Thank you. You're trying to appeal to a human being, right? Where we are very emotion based. We don't. The logic part comes later usually. So, and for some of us, I mean, that is tough. Like that, maybe think more. You're trying to use more logic. It is tough. It's tough to like cross that bridge at times and make sense of it, because you just don't get it. But what do you see going forward in terms of, because I bring it back to like the opportunity cost and some of the things we talked about earlier, people are reframing their mind. So truly kind of wrapping that all together and putting a bow on this. Is that something that people will see, in the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, as value continues to accrete to the network?
Yeah. I think unfortunately a lot of people will probably see it too late, because nominal bias is just like such a powerful thing. I really think the next like big wave of people like taking a look at this thing is around $450,000. Because like the median price of homes in the
For the
US
home?
is about 450 grand.
Interesting.
So like previously, like I didn't like Bitcoin has been less than a Ford F-150, like a brand new Ford F-150. So a fancy one.
Yeah, Raptor. Yeah.
A Raptor.
Yeah.
But still, you're like, it's like there's cars that are more expensive than
Right.
Bitcoin. But like when that goes to 450,000, you're like, whoa, hold on. I think that may sound the alarm a little bit louder for some people, maybe. So yeah, I think continuing to reframe this is really important. I can't tell you how many times when I talk to people, they're like, wait, I could just buy like a little bit. Oh my God. I went golfing this weekend with one of my buddies, and he was like, you don't have to have a full Bitcoin to send it to cold storage. That's what he asked me.
Yeah.
And I had to like stop myself from laughing. I was like, no, you could send $10. You could send $10 if you wanted. And it was just like, oh my God. I felt like a bad friend, because I
you assume things. You just assume, right? Like you're
just assumed. And it was it's just like explaining it to people is like, this is super fractional, like it's infinitely divisible, and it's fungible. Like you can move it around in different ways, which makes it so great. Like I can't go to Starbucks and carve off a piece of my house and pay for my cup of coffee with like a shingle,
A shingle. Yeah, there you go.
but like theoretically you can with Bitcoin or places that accept Bitcoin via Lightning or whatever. Like I tip my barber in Bitcoin, and like that. I can do that, but I can't do that with my house. So like just continuing to showcase these like different use cases is really really helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And because it's just twofold. You're trying to appeal to fear and greed. You're trying to hook a human being in to then come watch the content that is very good. Come watch the content. You get the knowledge you need, and then at the same time you're trying to reframe the mind into like you said. People can understand hopefully that, hey, 0.1, you can get 0.1. Like, well, that's less than 1. You don't need 1. You don't have to buy just 1. You can get less than 1. So there's two reasons that, people are trying to reframe these things. So
you know what I've been going with recently is like, just have greater than 0.
Yeah.
Like if you have 0, you're short.
Mm-hmm.
And like people I care about, that's kind of what I say is just like, how much you buy, like I'm not here to tell you how much to get to. Like that's your job. You got to figure it out. Just like have more than 0, have enough to like go learn about it, because like whatever that's different for everybody. And so I don't really. Another quick math thing that I've liked to run for myself is there's 21 million coins, right? And there's 8 billion people on the planet. You could just do quick math. Like if this was spread out evenly between everybody, it's like 0.002 Bitcoin for every single person on the planet. You're like, okay, well, you could buy that today for, I don't know, $150. And you'd guarantee that have more than like the average person on the planet for like $150. So that's one way to look at it. And then you think of like, okay, well, what's it take to have 10 orders of magnitude more than the average person on the planet if this was spread evenly? And you're like, well, I could buy that today for $30,000. Okay, that starts to look pretty good. My wealth relative to the rest of the world starts to look pretty good if you run that math. And I think that's a quick and easy way to frame it. It's just like there's 21 million, there's 8 billion people on the planet. There you go.
Really, no, I love that, Jeff. I mean, yeah, it is. It's just, again, the theme of a lot of this has been obviously, the mind, reframe the mind, not tricking the mind, but the psychology. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Like just this like human psychology aspect, which is so big in Bitcoin and in personal finance and financial education, which, we're both passionate about. Last thing, what are your thoughts on the end game of the system? We've kind of jogged around this a little bit, circled around this to a degree. You have, everyone has their thought on what the total market cap of, and we'll say in today's dollars, like again, it's a different protocol outside of the system, but we do live in this system right now, and so I can hear people yelling right now, like I'm totally Bitcoin. Like I live outside the system. I get it. We get it. Yeah. But what are we looking at in terms of the future and like where this thing is going? You have, anywhere from, hey, people that think it's, gold's market cap, and that's all it's going to be. We've talked about obviously the siphon of $600 trillion. We'll just say there's 1 quadrillion in the world today. And we've talked a lot about Jack Mallers is, hey, it's 1/2 of every trade. It's 450 to 500 trillion. And then Jeff Booth is, hey, it has to account, since it is a new protocol outside the system, it has to be all 900 trillion to 1 quadrillion. So it has to account for every single dollar in today's dollars. At the end of the day, 100 years from now, 50 years from now, 10 years from now, whenever this transpires, what is your thought? What is your analysis on, I think it's going to be this is the total market cap end game of Bitcoin and where it's heading?
That's tricky. That's definitely something I think about occasionally. The one weird like hesitation I have in answering this is that, and this has come up a few times, is like, why would I own an equity if we're going to be in a Bitcoin world? And this has come up a couple times. Not everything is for sale at the same time. So like, there will be 21 million Bitcoin, but I think there will be, I don't know, maybe like 150 million of Bitcoin worth of value in the world. You know what I mean? Because like Not all the
That's
houses are
like
going to
Peter
be for
Denworth,
sale.
I know, was like that. Yeah, he's like, oh, it's gonna be
It's like
multiples of that. Yeah,
it's going to be some multiple of it. It's going to be
yeah,
way larger, and I don't even know how to like begin to quantify it.
compute it. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because it's like not everything is going to be for sale at the same time. Like all equities, like there's going to be different reasons for holding equities. There's going to be different, like bonds may not even exist. Maybe we live in a fully equitized world. Houses probably retreat to their actual like their utilization value, and like, with the exception of prime real estate. And yeah, it's hard to conceptualize. I think kind of near term, there's a couple significant milestones that I think are worth like watching. Is I think it's around like 210,000. If Bitcoin breaks above 210,000, might be around 200,000. I don't know as of today. It would be the largest. It would leapfrog all of the equities. Like right now, I think Bitcoin is like the sixth or seventh largest asset on the planet. Behind gold is number one, and then you got Nvidia, Microsoft, like all of the Mag 7 really. And at that point, that's also a whole new narrative. As Bitcoin, breaks an all-time high and goes above the largest companies in the world, that's going to be a whole new ball game of like what is this thing worth? It's worth more than all of the equities, and then above 4 trillion, between 4 trillion and 22 trillion, there's blue sky.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you've got blue sky between 4 trillion and 22 trillion. Like what's it worth? No idea, but it's probably worth more.
Yeah.
It's probably worth more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of those are some interesting prices to keep in mind of just kind of what's happening broadly. And it's just so hard to speculate on. Like I'm so focused on like the next 10 years and like what I can do in the next 10 years, and like whatever we speculate, we're going to be wrong, because it's just like I can't even. There's so many things that I can't even conceptualize that are going to exist 20 years from now that just don't exist today. And like,
oh boy,
it's like it's hard to even like throw a dart at the board.
That's
except I think with pretty high confidence it's going to go higher.
The dollar is going to go down and Bitcoin will go up. I can guarantee you that. That's that's the thesis of everything, truly, at the end of the day, right? I mean, if it's what we think it is, Bitcoin stays decentralized and secure, and it does what we think it does, we know, guaranteed, the dollar has to go down. They have to print more. It's impossible not to, or the system all implodes on itself. To your point earlier, like in both directions, it's bad. Like, pick your poison. Like, which direction are we choosing? Well, clearly we're going to choose financial repression, print into oblivion. And we're at the debt. What was the debt, Jeff, like, 15, 20 years ago? Weren't we at like 5 trillion or 8 trillion? Now we're at 38 trillion, right? Like,
way less. Yeah, way less. And so you think about the leverage ratio of the United States is like 800%. It's like you've got 8 times more debt than you do assets. It's like, okay, well, if that were a company, that company would be out of business. And yet people are concerned about Strategy's 18% leverage ratio. And that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. Boy, oh boy. Hey, I guess aircraft carriers and all that, the IRS, all that, is
hard to value those.
Exactly. They get you further down the line than I guess any of us could. We'd be bankrupt.
Hard to value the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean as a moat. It's like, well, what do you value that at? Like, I don't know.
It's hard to value Chester Nimitz, the Admiral Nimitz, in the Pacific Fleet, Jeff. Gosh dang it. Exactly. Oh boy. Incredible stuff, man. This is anything else to share? You can share. Where can people find you? It's incredible talk.
People can find me at Punter Jeff on X. I was a punter in college. I played football. That's why it's a punter. I'm not in English speak, it's actually a high stakes gambler. So I guess it kind of fits.
Right.
You can find me on X. I do a podcast on Mondays, usually released on Tuesdays, called the Hurdle Rate Podcast. That's with the CEO of Strive, and then one of our board members, Ben Workman, and Tim Kotzman as well. And then we also have the Investment Grade Bitcoin Podcast. We call it True North. Happens every Wednesday. It's at or every Wednesday ish, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. and we do it live. It's live content. We talk about everything that's happened in the last week, and our views on the evolution of the Bitcoin market, the securitized finance going on. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Come hang out. The chat is kind of crazy sometimes. We got bots in there. We got real people in there. And sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's crazy. And
sometimes it's
yeah.
both.
Yeah, it's good.
Amazing stuff. Thanks so much, Jeff, for joining us here today and dropping all this knowledge on all of us. I know everyone will appreciate it a lot. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Take it easy. Talk to you.
If you like that episode, then you're going to love the playlist we put together for you with our most recent podcast with the top Bitcoiners, sound money, liberty advocates in the world. Go check those out here. We'll see you inside. You're going to love them.